Hello, my minions. I've come with a heavy heart to say Star Trek has an STD. It's a herpes level of STD, and it is scary. I've watched the 2 episodes that came out for Star Trek Discovery in the last couple of days, and I am not pleased. There are a few things in there that was okay, that I can at least admit that. For example, there were some lens flares that worked. The vast majority didn't. The vast majority just became kind of a nuisance to watch. There were some that worked, some that didn't. But my biggest gripe first, it's something that I've already addressed in some of my previous videos. I may link it down below. My biggest gripe is that because Star Trek was always the sum of its parts, it's always worked as a whole and never a single individual. We had the captain and the commander and so on and so forth, and each episode focused solely on the entire crew. For example, sometimes you'll have a personal story here and there, but it was always the crew. It was always about the ship and the crew. This time, it's only about one individual, and it doesn't feel Star Trekky enough. And they chose an even worse actress to do the job. And it is unbelievable how she managed to butcher the role. I really did not like her playing as Michael. Oh, by the way, that's actually a male name. Yes, that's exactly what it felt like when I kept hearing Michael Durham. Or Durham. You know what? I don't even care anymore.
A few moments later.
Burnham. She didn't even play her part properly. Sonequa Martin Green was a subpar actress for this role. She wasn't that good either in Walking Dead. There were times that I actually wished she would just die already and become a zombie. Anyway, but Michelle Yeoh, she managed to sell her part, and this is why I think they should have chosen an actress like her to play such an important role, because no, I'm not gonna censor myself this time, because some mentally questionable individual thought it was a great idea to focus on one person only. You know, doing something quite whoopsie. This is going to be a difficult recording. I'm gonna have to keep censoring myself. Thank you, YouTube. For example, there are various scenes in that she doesn't seem to show a lot of emotions, and this played as a role on Walking Dead as well. She didn't show fear or emotion. There was something wrong on her face. It's like she had a plastic surgery and the surgeon kind of just glued everything in one position and she barely shows any emotion. Or she doesn't show she's playing the part. Even Spock, that is supposed to be a serious person, or Tuvok, which are all Vulcans, they can't show emotion. They played properly. They showed like they knew the characters, that they could play the part. She didn't. Sonequa didn't. I'm sorry, but she is one of the biggest problems in this series. And the second one, it's got whoopsie. The Klingons got completely, utterly, and totally butchered. Those are not Klingons. I won't understand, for example, in the first series, the Klingons were originally supposed to be quite alien, but due to the budget constraints, Gene Roddenberry and the directors couldn't actually express that on the Klingons back then. But as soon as the new generation started and the older series and movies, things started to improve, and new makeup started to be used, and Klingons started to take that look we all recognize. But they kept the basic look, and after that, in Star Trek Enterprise, tried to explain why the Klingons from the first Star Trek, the original series, was different. They said it was some genetic mutation based on the genetic warfare that Earth had. So the Klingons tried to improve themselves, and by consequence, the Klingons back then had no rages. That was the explanation in Star Trek Enterprise, and it was really good. They managed to patch in continuity error. But in this one, how the fuck? But in this one, how are they going to explain that? Yes, that. And another thing that I found really weird is that they have an albino, a Klingon albino. We'd never seen a single albino Klingon, and that really rustled my Trekkie chimneys. Second, another problem on the Klingons is that their clothing doesn't match Klingon culture or their clothing itself on all the other series previous to Star Trek Discovery. It feels completely different, and somehow the Klingons by itself managed to create some sort of religious cult in there. It doesn't feel right. It feels completely out of place. Then another problem. The Klingons seem to be technologically superior enough to cause the Federation problems, but their holographic technology seems to be abysmal, because they showed green in one side and the hologram for the Starfleet captain was in color. So sure, you can explain that because probably the Klingon ships don't have color holographics to send to the main big ship. Another problem with the Klingons, the ship design. None of them seem to look Klingon-y. They seem to look way too alien. There were one or two ships that warped in that looks a bit like Klingon, but none of them look like the original Klingons. The Klingon ships felt more or less like they were hastily strapped in. They used antiquated technology or anything that could fly, and they would be glad to die in battle. Another problem, and this is separate to the Klingons but kind of connected. The hologram or the holographs are somehow able to sit on furniture or whatever console or panel is on the ship. Take a look at Sarek sitting on a console talking to Michael. I'm never gonna get used to this name. As you can see, holographic technology doesn't quite work like that. Another problem with the holograms or holographic technology on the Star Trek, they don't fit the canon of the other Star Treks. The other Star Treks, they always had the character on screen, like on a monitor or something, or a projection, but never a hologram, kind of like they showed here on Star Trek Discovery. That's completely wrong. It's as if they advance in technology, but yet they're still 10 years before the original series happened. The ships also feel kind of like that. For example, Star Trek Enterprise still managed to fit in the technology of the time that we had back in the early noughties, and still make it something antiquated or old compared to the original series. It was really well made. But this one, they didn't even try. And now they added transparent or glass panels or glass monitors. The technology, it's completely out of place. It's contradicting the other Star Treks, even the movies itself, which try to connect in with the universe of Star Trek within the Abrams universe, and they are still completely off. What universe are we in this Star Trek? Apparently, it's supposed to be the same as Kirk, but I don't get it. The storyline doesn't seem to match anything Star Trek that I've watched. It feels weird. It doesn't feel Star Trek. It feels something like a generic science fiction. The story is so generic that it feels like I'm watching a generic science fiction series with Star Trek as scenery behind, or anything resembling some sort of Star Trek in it. It doesn't feel right. And you know what's even worse? They destroyed the Prime Directive! They violated it! Right on the start. That's how religions are born. They violated the Prime Directive. We had an entire The Next Generation episode about this, and they fucking violated it! How would someone write something like this? They violated the Prime Directive on the first episode, in the first few seconds of the episode, and they violated it. My inner Trekkie wants to kill himself, and I'm afraid that I'm going to give him a phaser, because this was a disaster. Star Trek Discovery, the herpes of Star Trek. It's an STD. Really don't feel like watching the rest, but I still feel like I should give it a chance. I'm gonna give it 4 until the episode 4, maybe 5, and see if it improves or anything, or if anything changes. But if it continues like this, I'm definitely not even going to bother. They butchered Star Trek, and all of this because they tried to visual signal by doing some sort of black woman being the main character, because virtual signaling, because racism and this and that. Really, Star Trek was always progressive in itself, but never on your face. It was always subtle. People didn't see races. People were normal, acted normal. They didn't care if the person was black or white. It doesn't matter. But this time, this Star Trek, they are actually pointing, look, she's a black woman. Let's focus on her. That's not being progressive. This is actually being a Puritan. Before the race relations got better, now it's worse. But anyway, and right now they're practicing things similar to segregation. I just can't justify what they're doing. My apologies for this part of the video. It's going to sound a bit worse than usual, because I've had a few more thoughts regarding Star Trek Discovery, and I had to do it on the next day, and today is whoopsie, and today is hot. Here are the few things, hopefully the last that I have to say about Star Trek Discovery for a while. Sarek had no issues handing her over to Starfleet, but became estranged from Spock when he actually did join Starfleet. Sarek never mentioned Michael before, and that really leaves me wondering what happened. Are the people who wrote this series ever watched a Star Trek before, an episode of Star Trek before, or they just watched the new movies that came out since the new movies from Abrams? And this is the only positive thing that I have to say on the whole. It's the really, really good bit that I have no criticisms whatsoever. It's the intro. The intro was excellent. I loved the intro. That means that's the only positive thing of the entire Star Trek Discovery series. Let's hope it gets better as the season goes on, but I'm not holding my breath over this. And another thing that really had me bothered, that I kind of didn't want to, but I'm gonna have to comment anyway. Starfleet broke one of its tenets by beaming a photon torpedo core with the bodies of the dead Klingons, and that broke even today's human rights law. I know Starfleet is a stickler for moral principles, and I agree with them. You shouldn't compromise your morality on anything like that, but then again, they did on this episode. I remember Deep Space Nine, how Cisco got, and the entire crew around the station got really bothered for what he did. I'm not gonna mention what, but I'm gonna leave it like that so it doesn't ruin anything for anyone watching this video. But when they did beam the photon torpedo core to the bodies on Star Trek Herpes Discovery, no one was bothered, everyone cheered. That was something that Starfleet would frown upon, and the crimes she was accused of in the end, there was no mention of this. So that was really left me in a pickle as to why they do that. But they would do that. The only reason I can explain that is because the writers have no concept or never watched Star Trek before. If someone did, it must be one needle in a haystack on the writer's room. Another one that really kind of got me was I never saw a human perform a Vulcan neck pinch before in Star Trek. But here in this Star Trek Discovery of Herpes, Michael did it. She did it without anything of extra strength or Vulcan mind meld. She's not a Vulcan. So in the beginning, the initial idea of the Vulcan neck pinch was that the person felt like an electrical discharge from a mini mind meld, and thus the person became unconscious. But things changed around the next generation, and things went forward, and it became something related to strength, and a bit also related to Vulcans, but it was just an occasional thing. And you could see others performing such a technique like Data or Odo, but in this case, there was only one case where you actually think it might have been performed by an incomplete human. It was Picard, but what he did was not an actual Vulcan neck pinch. It was a carotid artery block. That was explained on the script of the episode, so there's no arguing with that. No ifs, no ands, no buts, no. It's not a Vulcan neck pinch. And the Jonathan Archer episode, he was actually carrying Surak's Katra, while McCoy carrying Spock's Katra, who couldn't do it because of the arthritis on his hand. So basically this leaves another problem on this episode. How did he do it? How did she do it on the captain? How? She doesn't have the strength, doesn't have Katras. It leaves you wondering what happened. You're really craving for some Star Trek. Watch the USS Orville. It was made by someone who loves Star Trek. He's a complete and total fanboy of Star Trek. And this is why I completely recommend Orville. It's like watching a Star Trek episode. And it felt great. The stories, it has the fun moment and the jokes, and those are hilarious. Some kind of misfire here and there, but still great. But if I were to pick between Star Trek Discovery, Herpes, or Star Trek Herpes, and USS Orville, I'll take Orville. Hands down, without thinking twice, always Orville. Because Orville is actually more Star Trek-y than Star Trek Herpes. that McFarlane managed to completely capture the Star Trek universe in USS Orville, something that they failed completely on Star Trek Herpes. Oh, sorry, Discovery. Herpes, the Discovery. I hope my opinions of Star Trek Herpes, sorry, Discovery, are wrong, and I really hope that in the next 2-3 episodes that I've decided to give the benefit of the doubt really managed to change what I felt on those 2 episodes. So far, it's not looking good. It's looking like a disaster. Well, that's it for today, my beautiful minions. Good night. Take care. I hope you don't miss me on Twitch, because I still need to get a cable to get my second old monitor to work. It's definitely unworkable having to stream with one screen, but I hope to get it sorted soon. Anyway, here's my good night again, and don't let the ugly little Star Trek herpes bite you in the ass. Yeah.